Hello, and welcome to the Silicon Alley podcast. This week's episode is focused all on social media marketing. Tamay Shannon, the founder of W2S Marketing, sits down to talk about the keys to driving a strong social media strategy, as well as the common pitfalls that you need to make sure that you avoid. And we'll talk about how you can maximize your marketing efforts to drive real business results and not just likes and feel good metrics. I'm William Glass, CEO and co-founder of Ostrich, and of course, your host of the Silicon Alley podcast, where it's my job to talk to entrepreneurs, VCs, and top performers and uncover what it truly takes to grow and scale a business. If you haven't already, go ahead and pound that subscribe button so you get notified when episodes air every Friday. And without further ado, I hope you enjoy this social media marketing focused episode of the Silicon Alley podcast featuring the Tamay Shannon. You got no time to waste, but still you hesitate. Tamay, welcome to the Silicon Alley podcast. Super excited to have you on today.
Super excited to be here.
Yeah. So I'm really interested to hear your story first and foremost, and then definitely get into some of your expertise around social media, because it's one of those things that is so crucial to business these days, especially in the environment that we live in. But it's so hard to seem to crack all the different algorithms and platforms, and It's just overwhelming.
Yeah, totally. So it's funny. When I got started, I'm of the generation where we got to have all the fun and world events. And so in '08, the economy was wonderful and sparkling, right? And so when I got out of school for the second time, I did what everybody said you should do, which is look for a job. And I totally tried. I tried my hardest. And all that was available were internships. And I was like, oh, that's great. It doesn't pay anything, but experience, totally great. So I was doing a lot of teaching assistants and things like that. And my mom suggested that I should start a business. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's a horrible idea. Because I felt that I didn't have enough. I felt that I didn't have enough credits. I didn't have enough corporate experience. I didn't have the letters behind my name. Like all this stuff I felt I needed to have to be a business owner I didn't have. But I sat with it. It was still kicking around in my mind for 6 months. And I finally was like, well, you know what? Screw it. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. It's me and a dog. I can do ramen all day. It's fine. I'll make it happen. So that's sort of that is how I got started.
That's awesome. So it's really interesting and great that you had that support from your mom, from your family, because a lot of entrepreneurs have the opposite, where it's the family's kind of telling them, well, maybe you should do something a little bit more steady, or, don't you want a regular paycheck every 2 weeks?
Right. It's funny. Well, I never had that experience. My parents were always like, when I went to school and I was like, I want to major in English. I never had like, why don't you try a science? But I had so many of my peers whose parents were like, no, you've got to go into chemistry or pre-econ or pre-law or something like that. And I was like, I like to read books. But yeah, my parents were always like, yeah, if that's what you want to do, go ahead, let's do it. Let's major in English.
Yeah, that's awesome. So how impactful has that been, though, especially as starting the business and early on, to have that support?
I never had, I didn't have, not having somebody saying, like you said, oh, hey, so, a real job that, you should check it out. It could be really awesome. She was always just like, well, okay, so if that's not working, let's try it this way. Or what about if you do this? Or how about you couple it this way? So yeah, it's really because being in business is a war against oneself sometimes. And so the fact that I didn't also have to war with family and friends just, let me focus in on myself and all the crazy things that I like to tell myself because, I'm my own best friend sometimes. Not.
No, to me, that's a great point. And I like that the way that you phrase that, war against oneself, because it's so true. Like you just end up in your head all the time as an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's crazy because the things, they always say the things you would say to yourself, you wouldn't say to other people. And it's funny, even when I'm like, wow, Tamay, that was really mean, I still say it. I'm like, and you should do this, this, and this, and you should be better. And I'm like, but that's really hard. And so it's definitely, I think Yeah, being in business, that is the biggest thing that I think they don't tell you about is, yeah, you got to figure out how to pay taxes and deliver services and be consistent and, continue learning. But then there's this other like 50% of the pie that's like really dealing with yourself and your beliefs and your thoughts and all of that good stuff.
Yeah. No, it's a great point. And you kind of touched on it. That was what you struggled with early on, of whether I should start the businesses. I don't have the industry experience, or I'm not corporate enough. So like, how did you overcome that? And how do you like talk to yourself today? Sounds like it's always a challenge, but talk a little bit about the early days and how you overcame that.
I guess I didn't so much overcome it as I sort of kind of like try to hide from it. So when I say try to hide from it, I mean like, okay, do you remember that game that was really popular a while ago? Freddy's. You're in a dark spot or you're in a dark place and they're coming to get you and it lights up and you've got to avoid a Freddy bear or something. And I feel like it was that, like, it was always there. And I was just hiding in the dark from it just so I could move forward a little bit. So it was always this looming thing. But if I could just hide behind this big bookcase, if I could just sneak around the corner real quick, I could have 45 minutes. I could have an hour of focusing on my business and moving forward. But yeah, it's that not enough, that thing of like, am I doing this right? Am I crazy? Especially when you're looking to others and others don't happen to look like you. And you're like, okay, so-and-so said, oh, all you have to do to get a loan is this, this, this. And you're like, okay, all right, that's great. And then you do this, this, this. And you're like, that didn't work for me. Maybe I shouldn't be doing it, period. So.
No, that's a really, really interesting point, because I definitely want to dive into that. So not a lot of people looking like you, right? A Black female that is in this kind of corporate world. And how do you deal with that? How do you overcome that? What are some of the ways that you like push forward through those roadblocks that you have experienced?
It's a lot of mental gymnastics. And it varies day to day. Some days I need to center myself. Some days I rock out to Lizzo. I'm 100% that bitch. Like there are days where that's where I have to go. There are days where I rely on community. There are days where my friends have to reflect back to me who I am. So I just have this store of things to pick from when I am in the space of like, you crazy, you shouldn't even be here. I just have things to pull from. And so that's sort of kind of how it's not one thing, it's a mini thing because I remember especially in the beginning, because when I started, there were still people being like, my cousin's sister's best friend's firstborn child, they do social media. Why would I pay you? So that's when I started social media. That's what people were telling me about it, because it's free. And people who were doing it did not look like me. And so, it just, yes.
Gotcha. Yeah. So there's a lot of strategies that you use and have used over the years. Tamay, so you were in the early days of social media before. Now pretty much every company, business, for the most part, sees that there's value in it, investing in social media. And that varies obviously exactly how that looks. But how did you break through, start to build a client base? And talk to me about how you built W2S.
A lot of face-to-face networking. And it's funny, it's one of the things that I still tell people today, when people come to me and they're like, I want to get on social media because I want to have these, big breakthroughs, or I need to raise $1,000, $2,000, $5,000 really, really quickly. And I always say, social media ain't it then. If you are looking to start today and then write a check tomorrow, social media is absolutely categorically not the thing. If you're like, I need to sign a contract today for 10K, then I always tell people, go to your connections, hit up LinkedIn connections, go through all the people you're connected to and start having conversations. But don't get on Facebook or TikTok or Instagram and put a picture up there and be like, I have a thing for sale. Like, no, it doesn't work like that. And so for me, that's how I started. Was I just went to people I knew and I networked and I got in front of people, because that's the quickest way to have people know, like, and trust you. And especially because Clubhouse came on the scene, people now see the let's call it tomfoolery that happens on these internets, that happens when people want to proclaim themselves. I can show you how to make 6 figures in 6 seconds. You're like, that's not how any of this works. What? So yeah, I think that's for me, that's how I started. Is I just talking to people, having conversations with people that I knew. That's what did it for me.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I think that that's a great point. And you're starting to allude to the fact of what we should be using and what businesses and entrepreneurs should be using social media too, but getting out there and actually talking to people in your network, having conversations, that's the way to really get started.
Yeah. Yep. That is hands down.
So Tamay, you mentioned Clubhouse. So I definitely want to go there for folks that maybe aren't familiar with Clubhouse yet. We'll see how this question ages over the next couple of years.
Right. Exactly.
Like, what is Clubhouse? And, the kind of tomfoolery that you're talking about of how not to use social media, or the kind of promises that are made that are just unrealistic.
Crazy. So Clubhouse is, I think, this wonderful, just anachronism. Like, back in the day, there were party lines, and because, you could pick up a landline and you could be connected. And so I think Clubhouse is this updated version of party lines, and it's audio only. And I think with the advent of all these tiring Zoom meetings, people were like, oh, I can still talk to people and not have to look any kind of way. Oh, that's fine. Okay, great. So I think it sort of kind of rose to popularity in that aspect. And with any new platform, the first people on there's certain industries that are always new on any platform. And charlatans are always there, and that's their job. Their job is to be a charlatan, so that's what they're doing. So kudos for them for doing their job. But on Clubhouse, what it looks like is how to make 6 figures in 6 seconds, or all you have to do to have a 10K month is this. And either A, they're outright lying, or B, they're neglecting to share the 5 years, 7 years, 10 years they put into building their business to get to the point where they could put out a post on Instagram and have 6 figures in 6 seconds. Is because they did all the work. It took to, so those are the two people that are on there a lot. And it's not just that. Like, I follow a room that plays house music. And so that's what I'll co-work to, is house music. So there's a lot of things on Clubhouse, but there are definitely people there who are there specifically to take advantage of others.
Yeah. That's a really great point. So how do you avoid those folks? How do I not get sucked into that? Because, obviously as an entrepreneur building a business, you're optimistic. You want to be the person that makes 6 figures in 6 seconds. That sounds great. So how do you avoid falling into the traps and kind of, I'll say scams, but maybe there's a better word for that, but these kind of misrepresentations that of how to grow a business, or, how do you avoid that?
I think really, so there's 2 ways. There's having a strategy. If you have a strategy for growth in your business and what it looks like and what it includes, when you measure it against an opportunity, whatever that opportunity is, you can see if it truly fits how you want to grow your business. Because if you've built a good strategy, it includes things like how you want your life to look. Do you want to work 4 days a week, 3 days a week, 8 days a week, whatever? It includes all of that extra stuff. So that's one way, is to really measure it against the fundamentals of how you want your business to look for your life. And then on the other side is that doesn't happen. Like there point blank period. There is there okay, there are no absolutes, but there aren't overnight successes. That's just not how people, the world, things work. When there's overnight successes, they've been putting in the hours, and it might not have been putting in the hours in that particular business, but they might have had umpteen other businesses that failed. And so this one worked, but they still put in the hours. So if there's somebody out there who's like, oh, you don't have to do anything, it's super simple, your little red flag should be waving danger, Will Robinson, danger. Like it should not, like you should be worried because being in business takes work. It doesn't take struggle, but it does take work. And I don't care if you have $1 million business, you have $1,000 business, you have $100 business, there's always going to be some sort of work that you have to put in to get the results you want to get, whether that's leveraging other people's work or whether that's you working. There's always got to, so yeah, there's no like, oh, just flip on a switch. Yeah, it'll be cash buckets. It's going to be raining on you. It's going to be great.
Perfect. So avoid the cash buckets. Anyone that's claiming exactly. Get rich quick, be wary of.
And then I just wanted to add on to that is they might not be promising lots of money. They might be promising lots of followers or lots of newsletter signups or blah 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 blah. And still be cautious because yeah, great, you get 2 million new followers. Are they people interested in your business? Do they care about? So people are not always promising money, but they all are promising other ways that we value things on the internet. So there's that too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's a great point. And I'm glad that you brought it away from just the money, because there are a lot of services. I get, I don't know how many DMs on Instagram or emails that said automated, terribly formatted, saying, hey, you want 10,000 followers, or like pay us $200 and we'll give you a shout out on our platform that probably only has bots. So,
exactly.
Because so I guess kind of bringing this back to what should you use social media for? Because earlier on you mentioned, it's not a quick kind of boom, I'm going to have a ton of success right away. So what's the proper way to think about using social media in a business context as an entrepreneur?
You can absolutely use it for all the things. But to get to certain, for example, income generating specific activities on social, it takes you having built up consistency, trust, people like your content, and engaged audience. So typically when you're first starting out, what you're probably going to heavily be using social for is brand building, authority building, all of that stuff, because that means you're building trust. Unless you leverage other people's audiences and you get a cosign from somebody. So like if you are somebody and you happen to know, for example, Beyonce, if Beyonce cosigns you, you don't have to go through the trust factor because Beyonce cosigned you. So everybody is like, oh, well, they likes you. I like you. We done. So if you can leverage other people's trust, other people's contacts, then yes, you can shorten that time frame for growing and brand building. But if you're just starting out and you don't have any of that, then yeah, it takes a little bit to consistently, authentically make sure that you're producing content that people trust you, and that you're going to deliver the service, the product, whatever it is that you say you are.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. Yeah. If you can get Beyonce, that's, you're golden. But most of us, I think it's safe to say, can't do that.
Right.
So Tamay, in terms of, using social media as an entrepreneur, you talked about the authenticity, brand building. Should I be building a personal brand, a business brand? Should I be doing them in tandem? How does that work? And I'm curious to get this because there's so many, there's different perspectives all across, whoever you ask, but I'd love to get your take on it and how you see that kind of dilemma that a lot of entrepreneurs face.
Yeah. So yeah. It depends. So a personal brand is really great if you intend to be a speaker, start another business, be a, a multi entrepreneur, multi-business entrepreneur, things like that, where you're going to be taking chances. And so having people who trust you personally will make taking chances easier because you can call upon that trust. Yeah. But if you're out here and you're just like, no, I just want to build a manufacturing plant, I'm just really interested in focusing hardcore on this one business, this one service that I have, then no, you can really focus in on really building that business, that brand, particularly on social, because creating content is difficult. It's not difficult. It's time consuming. And so if you have to do it for both, that is less time you have to focus on other things. So I'm always of the mindset that we got to cut away the fat and we've got to focus in really narrowly until we have the resources, whether that's time or money, to expand and do more.
Yeah, no, that's great perspective in terms of when it makes sense to go personal brand route and to just focus on the business brand. So what are some of the ways that you do trim the fat? So how do you, what are some of the ways to focus when it comes to social media?
Don't do all the things. Just don't. And it's hard. It is so hard because I am on Clubhouse, but I don't, maybe once a week I pop in. But focusing in and saying no is so powerful and so helpful. And so when people say, hey, can you be on this podcast? Or, hey, can you write this article so we can blah, blah, blah. You've got to, again, it goes back to strategy. Like, okay, wait. Nope, that doesn't fit. It is a great opportunity, but it really doesn't fit with what I'm doing. Because if you say yes to that, then you're automatically saying no to something else. Whether that's spending time with your kids, whether that's watching Netflix, whether that's building out your own personal course, whatever it is, you're saying no to something else. And so you have to make sure the trade-off fits and is in line with your business and what you want it to do.
Yeah. So is there any advice to weigh that trade-off, right? Because I mean, it's easy to get roped into if someone wants you to have on, I don't know, a YouTube platform or channel, and you've never been on YouTube, but they've got 1 million followers. Like, right, maybe that does fit my business strategy now. Like, right. How do you, right. How do you start to think through that from, I guess, and maybe this is getting more to the strategic level of what you're truly using social media for.
Yeah.
But I'm curious to get your perspective on that aspect.
So this, interestingly enough, also goes back to being in business is like being at war with oneself, right? Because you can sit down and create a strategy and be on board with that strategy. And you're like, no, this absolutely fulfills everything that I want to have in my business and in my life. And then an opportunity comes along and all of a sudden you're like, but does it? Who knows? And so that's where you have to be confident in your choices and what you're going to say yes or no to. And, you might think that this is an amazing opportunity. Like, oh my gosh, somebody wants me on their platform. They have 1 million followers. Oh my goodness, this would like really change my biz. And absolutely it might. But then you have to go through the little things to actually have it change your biz, which means you've got to do the critical thinking to look at, okay, wait, if I have access to 1 million people, do I need to set up a new landing page? Do I need to make a new offer? If I make a new offer, what do I have to do in my backend system? How often do I follow up with them? What am I going to sell them? Like, there's all these things that you then have to do. You just don't show up and then rake it in. There's follow up. There's integrating them into the system. There's inviting them onto your platform to continue the relationship. So just because a really good opportunity comes doesn't mean it might be a good necessarily opportunity for you. It's just like the people when they go on Shark Tank. At this point, they're going on Shark Tank for the publicity most of the time. But it's like, if you're selected to go on Shark Tank, best believe you need to have inventory and a wonderful back end system. So when people flood in, they're like, I want that thing, you can actually deliver instead of sending out emails saying, hey, we're so sorry, we're going to get you your product in a month. They're getting responses like, hey, we sent it out, you'll have it in 3 days. So that's the other thing about looking at opportunities is actually, can you fulfill on what the opportunity is for your business?
Yeah, I'm really glad that you brought that back to the actual business, right? Thinking about the actual things that you need to do tactically to actually capitalize on an opportunity that comes your way, and are you able to actually fulfill that, and
Right.
does it make sense? So it's so obvious when you say it, but I think it's so easy in the moment to get blinded by the flashing lights or followers or whatever
Yes. So,
the opportunity
so
shows.
easy. I mean, it's happened to me and I'm like, oh, that's awesome. And it's like, oh my gosh, I wasn't ready. I was not ready. So yeah, it totally is easy to be blinded in the moment because it's exciting, because you pour your heart into something and then it feels like validation. Like somebody says, oh my gosh, I see you. I love what you're doing. Come over here. Let's have a conversation. You're like, this is what I wanted. But is it really?
Yeah, it's really powerful. Tamay, in terms of creating content, how do you go about thinking about that from a strategic perspective? You mentioned not doing all of the things. So how do I identify what's the best platforms to use, and how do I create content specific to that platform and that's relevant to my business, that's going to, one, get me the awareness that I'm probably looking for,
Right.
or the conversions that I'm looking for, but is also contextual to the platform and the audience? Talk to me a little bit about that aspect of social media.
So that always folds into knowing who you really want to work with, whether you call them an avatar, an ideal customer, an ideal client, whatever you call them, but it's fundamentally the people that you want to work with. And so you've got to know them like you know the back of your hand. What do they care about? What's important to them? What are their pain points? What do they do when they get up in the morning? Are they like a coffee person, or are they a tea person? Do they meditate? Do they run? Do they just watch TV? Do they watch the news? And knowing all of that, the reason why it's so important to know all of that is because you can speak to them. It's no different when you get a text message from a friend, they're speaking to you and you're more likely to respond. But when you get it from a business and it's a very blanket, like, wow, today is really warm, come in for 25% off a smoothie, you're like, okay, I mean, yeah, it's warm, I guess I'll go in, maybe I will, maybe I won't. But if they were like, oh, hey, you just finished your workout and you probably need to replenish your electrolytes, you'd be like, you're right, I did just finish my workout, I do need to replenish my electrolytes. So it's the difference between really knowing your people. And on social media, that's how you create content, is you're addressing all their needs and all their concerns, the ones that are spoken and the ones that are unspoken, and you're using their language. And when people feel seen and heard, it makes it easy for them to say yes. And that's what content does. It makes all your content makes people seen, heard, and validated. And so they're like, oh my gosh, yeah, I totally want to work with you. I totally want to do this. And that's why there's two websites I like to do. One is called Answer the Public, answerthepublic.com. And the other one is answersocrates.com. Pretty sure it's Answer Socrates. But basically, you go to these websites and you can type in the keywords for your business, and it shows you the questions people are asking. And so that's another way to create content. If you know your ideal customer avatar, whatever, you know what they're typing in. If you know what they're typing into the search bar, you can create content around those answers. It's like, the stimulus just came out, and even if I have an account or don't have an account, I am getting FAQs from all the banks being like, look, this is how you can check on your stimulus, and this is da 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 da. But it's smart because these are the questions that people are asking. And so if you answer the questions that people are asking, people are more likely, it's just natural for them to do business with you.
Yeah. It's really, really great perspective, truly understanding who your audience is, who your target, as you said, either avatar, customer, and then answering the questions that they have, the needs and the wants. So that means that I can't just post cat memes and it'll be the best strategy. Or talk to me about like meme strategy, because people on Instagram, like meme accounts, do really, really well.
They do. So meme accounts are like Comedy Central, right? They're a comedy channel. So you can't, as a business, you can't copy that tactic because you're not Comedy Central. You're not a comedy channel. That's not your job. But leveraging memes is absolutely a wonderful way to really get your business voice out there, because It's the reason why memes work so well is because it coalesces feelings and experiences into an image, and an image typically that a lot of us can identify with. And so just a recent example, Bernie, right? Like the way that Bernie was sitting there, everybody could identify with like, I'm ready to go. Okay. Ready to go. Like we all just, we understand that feeling. And so one of the things, so that's why a lot of people, a lot of businesses could use it, because we all had that like, okay, I'm so done with this. I am so done with this. Can we like go now? And so that's why it works. And how you leverage it in your business is, one, always do research about the meme. Always, always, always understand where the meme comes from, because it's the internet. And you could use something that you think is cute and innocent, and it is not, and it's not aligned with your brand. So just make sure, one, you understand where the meme comes from. Two, understand what the meme means. So, if you're not into anime, or you're not like internet subculture, there are certain memes that you probably wouldn't use because it just wouldn't be aligned with your brand. So understand what the meme means before you use it. And then finally, unless you're small, okay, so this is the legalities of it. If you're a small business, you probably could get away with it. Bigger businesses, less so. But technically, memes that incorporate famous people, I recognize things, stuff like that. One, you can't sell because you're selling somebody else's image, and we can't technically do that because, but two, if they decided to send you a letter, say take it down, you would have to, because at the end of the day, you don't own it. So those are just some of the things to think about when incorporating memes into social media. You can do it, but you just got to follow those three things.
Yeah, no, that's really, really great, really great advice, because you've definitely seen instances where someone thinks that something means something that it doesn't when it comes to a meme or posting an image, or not really understanding. And you can tell when you're in the know. And that's the last thing you want to do, is tarnish your brand without even intending to.
Yeah, exactly.
So Tamay, what's the best way to then quickly get started? So if I haven't really, as an entrepreneur, but maybe I'm starting a new business, or just haven't really fully optimized or really dove into social media, but beyond like setting up an account and maybe posting a couple times, like how do you quickly get started to build that strong social media engine presence that, adds value to your business?
I would say the easiest thing to do is quickly designate days for types of content. So it'll help you to batch create. So for example, Wednesday can be a day you talk about client testimonials. Thursday can be a day that you talk about what it's like to do business with you, your offerings and services and things like that. Friday can be a fun day, or a day of, depending on your business, how do people use your product, whether it's something that's perfect for the weekend or whatever. So setting up your days like that will allow you to easily batch create content. And then from there, you look at one of the easiest things to do. One of the things we always forget is the questions that you always get. Well, how do I do this? Well, what does it mean if I work with you? Those questions, those are pieces of content. Those are great pieces of content, because since you're always getting them, it means people want to know. So always look at the questions that people are asking you to easily create content. And then also just look at the questions. And again, it goes back to the website I talked about, Answer Socrates. The questions that people have about your industry in general. They're out there Google searching stuff and trying to figure it out on their own. And if you're out here telling them the do's and the don'ts, or how and how not to, you're going to be a resource for them. And so when you're a resource for them, and I do this, everybody does, where there's a particular person in the industry where you're like, oh, I don't have to search for answers anymore. Okay, great. Whatever they say, I'm doing, because I don't feel like Googling anymore. So whatever they say, good to go. That's what I believe. So if you can become that for people, sharing this low-hanging fruit of the frequently asked questions, and what are they searching for, it makes it easy for people to trust you, but also for you to batch create content, because you don't have to go out searching. You can be like, oh, well, I just had a intro call today and they asked me these 3 questions. And people always ask me these 3 questions. All right, that's 3 pieces of content. All right, boom. And you can reschedule it, because it's not like once it's answered, people either saw it on social media or don't ask the question again. So you can reschedule, reuse your content. And in fact, if you're not reusing your content, you are doing a disservice to yourself.
Interesting. So that's a really great perspective. And I guess 2 things off of that. One is, you kind of talked about creating content every day. Do I really need to create and put out content every day? And then thinking about the recycling aspect, how do I take old content that I've created and refresh that or make it relevant to my audience today versus how, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, or last week?
Yes, content daily. The reason why I sounded very unsure is because social media is always it depends. So typically for most platforms, yeah, you got to create content daily. Now, you don't necessarily have to be posting it daily. You can be scheduling it. You can create it all on Sunday, schedule it out for the week, and you're good to go. But there is something that's got to go out, and it's because it's a way to remind people you exist, is essentially what social is. It's I'm here, I'm providing resources. This is how we can work together. That's what social media does. And it's no different than, if you looked at Coke, they are always like, okay, yeah, I know you just saw an in-game ad, but we're also going to show you a Hulu ad, and you're also going to see this ad. And so it's because we're doing so much. We're managing so much as people, just regular people in life. We have so much coming in and out, and we're dealing with so much information. And so making sure that you're consistent on social, make sure that you become familiar to people. And so becoming familiar to people is what that does. And how you reuse your content, it depends. It could be as easy as simply reposting it and not doing anything. So if you got some evergreen content that no matter what time of year, what's happening in the world, this is always true, you don't got to do nothing. Like, I don't want you to have to do any more work than you have to. But if you have something that needs to be a little updated, or interestingly enough, something that has done a 180, it would be great to repost that and talk about the 180. So for example, a year ago, we were all like, live events, let's go shake hands and talk to people face to face. And if you were in event planning or something like that, you had a lot of posts, you had a lot of content about how to network in person, how to exchange business cards, how to do da-da-da-da-da. And now that's not really relevant. So how do you take that post like, oh, look, this is still classic, but this is how you update it for the world that we live in today. This is how you exchange a business card. So you can absolutely go to old content that is not relevant anymore, or has something that's drastically changed, and like, oh, but this is still classic, or, oh, this is no longer relevant. News alert, guys, this doesn't work anymore. Do this instead. So there's a lot of ways you can leverage your old content to really talk about what's happening now.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, great. I love the idea of going back to things that have changed or what you were wrong. And obviously reposting stuff that you don't as evergreen is super, super simple and easy. In terms of scheduling, any recommendations? Are there tools? Can I do this directly on the platforms? Does it depend on the platform? What do you mean by scheduling content exactly?
So yeah, you can get yourself twisted up in this. So you could absolutely go in and schedule everything. But if it's just you, yourself, and you don't have time for that. So scheduling just means that you pick a day, Monday, Wednesday, whatever, and you produce all your content for the week. And so Facebook has a native scheduling platform for Facebook and Instagram. It is still buggy, y'all. So if you do use it, just make sure you double check that the post actually posts. They're working through some things right now. But there's a lot of platforms out there. Hootsuite, Punily, Tailwind, Schedule. No, it's not called Schedulegram anymore. I think it's something else. But there's so many platforms out there that will allow you to look at the calendar, schedule content, queue it up to post at Tuesday at 9, that you just have to explore, one, what works for you, what's easiest for you to use, and two, what will you use? There are a lot of programs out there. And so if something makes it easy for you to use, even if it's weird or clunky or costs more, use that, because at the end of the day, what you're shooting for is consistency.
Mm-hmm. And I guess you already touched on this, the consistency is important because people need to know that you exist, and it probably helps the algorithm as well, whatever the changing and tweaks happen every day or week or however frequently it's happening.
Yeah, it's consistency is important for all of that. But because the algorithm, man, that algorithm, it is a beast. But consistency also, just, you never know. And you just have to look at your own life where you were just doing something and you saw something. You're like, oh, that's right, I meant to do that. Oh, that's right, I meant to reach out. Oh yeah, I've been planning to do that. And so it's because of consistency that you can take advantage of those opportunities. It's just like going viral. Nobody plans to go viral, right? But they were consistent in their social, and it just came together. And people were like, oh, wow, like Where the Money Resides, that guy, I forgot his name, but he'd been doing this for a while. This wasn't new. It wasn't like he just one day, he was like, you know what? No, he'd done it before. And so, but it just happened to be that one video. It went viral, and now he's doing great, right? So it's being consistent to take advantage of what could be maybe one day a viral post. You just never know. You just have to keep showing up.
I like that. Yeah, just keep showing up and stick to your strategy, and eventually it will pay off.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Tamay, in terms of bringing it back to your business, and when you're thinking about success and what you're building, can you talk to me a little bit about that? Like, what is W2S? What is the vision for the company, and how do you define success for yourself?
So success for myself, especially in the realm of social media, is being able to take a week off and not touch social. That's success, because that means I have people, processes, and things in place such that if I want to go on a Facebook hiatus, I can. So that is how I measure success. That's how I measure the processes in my company, what's working, what's not working. Is if I leave, if I don't want to touch Instagram, or Facebook decides to lock out my account, will things move along, well? And so for me, that's like how I sort of kind of make it real. It's sort of like, what is success? That's how I make it real for myself. Because if I can do that, that means things like I'm generating enough revenue. I'm supporting the people that I want to support in business. Because for me, it's really important. The people that I want to work with, that I want to hire and use as vendors, I really try to make BIPOC. I want to support minority-owned businesses and things like that. And so I do that. But yes, I say all that to say, if I can take a week off, I know that all these things that I want to do in my business are being accomplished because I can step back that way.
Yeah. I love that definition. And obviously being in social media, that makes a lot of sense. If you can step away and it's still running and churning, then it's working.
Mm-hmm.
To me, in terms of supporting BIPOC, people of color, folks that are building, that have underrepresented, that have not had the opportunities from entrepreneurship, building businesses, how do we support that community more? What are some of the ways, strategies, things that someone listening to the podcast can implement in their life to actually go support underrepresented founders?
I say assume you have a bias. Just assume the bias is there. No matter what your well-intentioned meanings are, no matter what you think, assume the bias is there, and that it's there obviously subconsciously, that it's operating. No matter what your higher ego, id, whatever is thinking, you have a bias that's operating in the background. And that bias is operating against, for you, what is regular or normal. So what that looks like is if you happen to be a white dude, what is regular and normal for you is white dudes. And so the bias is anything that is not a white dude. So you might be asking extra questions to people. You might be asking for extra proof from people that you wouldn't ask from another person. So I think it's just one, assuming that there's a bias operating, and then go from there, and just being really cognizant and being willing to be like, yeah, that's me. Because most people were like, oh, I'm not biased. I'm biased. I am totally biased. And I have to check my biases, because there are times where, for example, for me, what a bias looks like for a brown person is when I see there's all these new wonderful, I love it, body positive, like underwear companies out there, right? And when I see the ads on Facebook, in the beginning, I was like, oh my gosh, she's big. And I was like, whoa, Tamay, what was that? What's going on in your head? And so, but that was me checking my bias. Like, oh, wait a minute. The paradigm I have about a certain good size is this. I'm seeing this image. I'm having a reaction. Yeah. Okay, that's a me reaction. Like, it's nothing I need to post about, like, oh, is she unhealthy? I'm concerned about her health. No, that's not the way to go. It's like looking internally and being like, oh, okay, I see what you're doing here. You've taken on this narrative. That narrative isn't correct. Let's start to work on that. So that's what it looks like when you have a gut reaction to be like, oh, that's wrong, or what's there, blah, 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 blah. You have to, that might be a bias. So that's what I would say would be one of the first things, and a willingness to say that I have a bias. I have to be willing to say that how I view this or this or this is not good, it's incorrect, or something like that.
Yeah. No, I love that. And that's immediately actionable, right? Like recognizing, okay, making that assumption, okay, I have a bias. And then thinking about when you have those things pop into your head, or whatever it is, as you said, with the underwear, the different advertisements, underwears using different types of body positivity. And that's not what you had typically seen or had been kind of conditioned from a bias perspective. So recognizing that, because if you don't recognize it, how can you take action or change that? Or
you absolutely cannot.
Exactly. I love that. So to me, the way that I like to wrap up the show is my focus is on financial well-being and helping people kind of live the lives that they want to, and not having finances be that kind of stressful, sometimes shameful, emotions that arise around it. So I'd like to ask, how would you describe your relationship with money?
Oh my gosh, we've been on a journey. We are now friends, so it's really nice. In the beginning, money wasn't something I talked about. It wasn't bad. It wasn't good. It was just this purgatory of an experience. And so it never moved forward. And so now my relationship is that it is a measurement. Money is a measurement. It's a measurement. If it's in my business, it's a measurement of like, how many sales calls I've had. Okay, well, how much is, okay, I've had this many sales calls. If it's personally, it's a measurement of like, have you gone on a trip recently, or have you done this recently? So money for me is a measurement, but not in a bad way, just like an indicator. Like, it's like, oh, green light, go, red light, stop. I'm not mad at the stop sign. I'm not like, oh, you stop sign. I'm like, oh, it's telling me, it's giving me information. It's saying I can go now. I will go now. So that's my relationship currently.
Yeah, no, I like that a lot. It's kind of reminds me, if you like, when you're feeling tired, like probably a good chance that you either need to get more rest, or like there's something going on, and using money as that kind of similar like measurement versus getting mad at yourself because you're tired. That's not going to help your tiredness, right? Getting mad at money or feeling upset about it isn't going to change that, but using it as a barometer. I like that a lot. In terms of the best investment that you've made, what would you say that is?
Oh my gosh. Hands down, myself. So, and that changes, right? So it, sometimes that investment in myself looks like more vocational or training in my industry. Sometimes investment in myself means like, so recently for Valentine's Day, I spent $500 on a sushi dinner, and it was amazing. it was amazing. Because I was like, I didn't know fish could taste like this. I didn't know there was fatty tuna and lean tuna. My whole world expanded. And that was a different investment in me because it gave me an experience that I never had before. And it was like, oh, this is so cool. This is another way to spend money. So for me, the biggest investment has always been myself, and it varies what that investment can look like.
Yeah. No, I love that. Yeah. And it's vocational, but also the experiences, as you said, the sushi dinners. Mm-hmm. That's great. Now, on the flip side, not everything's peachy and works out great. What's the worst or dumbest money mistake that you've made?
Myself. So there are times in business where I just knew I was going to do the thing. So I put the money down and I did not do the thing. And I was like, that was a lot of money not to do the thing, Tamay. Why did you do it that way? So conversely, on the other side, typically it would come out of me trying to match others, or me trying to copy others, or me trying to, well, they did it, so it must work for them, so let me do it. So not critically thinking for myself, is this part of your personality? Is this something you're actually going to do? Like, because you don't like sitting still looking at videos. So why are you going to buy a video course? But okay, sure. Go ahead. Buy the video course today. Where my worst investments have come from is me not really ascertaining how am I spending money? Is it actually aligned with who I am versus just being like, I saw somebody else do it. It looked like a good idea. I'm going to do it. So, yeah.
Yeah. No, it's really good insight, recognizing where the bad decisions or the mistakes that you've made come from, and that place of wanting to match other people. It's, yeah. If you can understand that, you can avoid a lot of those mistakes. So I love that. Kind of the last thing that I like to wrap up with is what would you say is the biggest challenge facing everyday folks when it comes to finances, based on your experiences?
Words. And when I say words, I mean jargon. I know for me, that was my biggest barrier to investment. Because there's all these words around, and I was like, what do these mean? And it's scary. It's like when GameStop happened, and when people were first talking about it in the news, I was like, what does all that mean though? Why should I care? But then somebody on the internet was like, oh, okay, it's if you did this and this and this. I was like, oh, that's what a short sale is. Okay, I get that. So for me, I think it's just these words, and it's a specialized industry. So of course you need special words, but I think not having something that everyday people can understand is the biggest barrier. It's the biggest barrier that I've experienced.
Yeah, no, I love that. Cause if you don't understand things, then there's no way that you can really comprehend what's going on. So if you using better words, simpler words, or just explanations that aren't jargon is a great way to make finances more accessible.
Yeah.
Tamay, this has been a lot of fun. I really appreciate you sitting down and sharing your experiences and expertise. It's been fun. I want to make sure that the audience knows how they can connect with you outside of the podcast. So please, share the best way to get in contact with you for anyone that wants to dive into social media deeper and is interested in working with W2S.
Yes. You guys can always shoot me an email, Tamay, TAMAY at W2Smarketing.com. And if you are like super old school, you're like, I just like to pick up a phone, I got you. Go ahead. You can give me a call. It's fine. My number is 678-837-6126. So you can go ahead, pick up the phone, give me a call. But those are the two best ways to reach out to me. And if you're just like, I just want to learn a little bit more about her, I'm not sure about her yet, my website is W2Smarketing.com.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Tamay. And this was a lot of fun. I really appreciate you sitting down today.
Yeah, thank you so much.
That's it for today's episode of the Silicon Alley podcast. I hope you enjoyed the conversation with Tamay Shannon and took away some key things from a social media perspective. If you did, go ahead and share this with someone else so that they get value just like you did. And if you haven't already, go ahead and pound that subscribe button so you get notified when episodes air every week. I'm William Glass, CEO and co-founder of Ostrich, and of course, your host of the Silicon Alley podcast. Have a very profitable day.
You got no time to waste, but still you hesitate.